Hello, and welcome to IDG Chit Chat Live for the week of March 16th, 2015. On this episode, we will be talking about this week in genealogy as well as topics we think you need to know more about, specifically the Josh Groban episode of Who Do You Think You Are? Hello, my name is Shannon Combs-Bennett, and I'm the creative director for the In-Depth Genealogist. Joining me this evening, our publisher, Jennifer Alford, Terry O'Connell, Executive Director, and our special guest, Ursula Krause, from Ruth Seeker's website and blog on location in Berlin. Hello and welcome, everyone. How are you this evening?
I'm good.
Good. Good. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode of Who Do You Think You Are?
Oh, very much. I did. I really did.
Well, I'm sure you did.
I'm very jealous.
I thought it was interesting that I noticed that this is 2 weeks in a row now. Instead of tracing several family members, the episode concentrated on one family member. Did you ladies notice that too?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I did. I thought that was really, really kind of fun. I like to get to know individuals a lot better, and that's kind of how I research. I focus on one person for, gather as much as I possibly can on that one person.
I like the fact that they delved into a lot of the social history of the area, and I'm sure Ursula can fill us in on anything that she thinks they left out.
Oh, unfortunately, they left out a lot because it's just 30 minutes and you have to put in a lot there. But I thought that it was very, very nicely done. The history of the Pietist movement and so that you could really get an idea what it was that happened.
Right.
And his financial problems and such.
I have to say that I was really surprised because here in the States we hear a lot about how much record loss there is in Germany because of World War II and all the bombing and the destruction, and I was really surprised at how many documents, especially where they were in Württemberg. Is that where they were?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the university.
In Tübingen.
Name of the university. I was surprised at how many original documents they had. That's not common, is it?
Well, in that area it is. I mean, there has been heavy bombing air raids there as well, but a lot of it was saved.
Oh,
that's good.
Wonderful.
Or the east where a lot was lost, or Berlin, the big cities.
Mm-hmm.
But like Bietigheim or Tübingen wasn't that heavily bombed and destroyed. So a lot of the old universities still have a lot of documents on their students. So I have that from my ancestors as well.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Yes,
So Terry, did you have a favorite part or something that you want to make sure that we discuss tonight?
I was just, record-wise, I'm with you. It was just amazing to see, the university, the church records. I mean, pulling out those books from the 1600s. I sat there like, I swear there was drool dripping down my face saying, I want that! Who do I need to send my research to finish off my Germans? It was just, I was really completely, utterly jealous.
That's cool.
What about you, Jen? Go ahead, Ursula. I'm sorry, Ursula started.
I noticed when in the beginning when he came out of his parents' house and he said, "I'm scared, but I'm excited." Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like, scared? Why is he scared? And I never thought about doing genealogy as something scary or yeah. So and he didn't really have to be scared of.
No. Maybe it's scared of the unknown. Maybe he didn't know, what am I going to find and where is this going to take me? Maybe it was like anticipation scared.
Yeah, hopefully. It's nothing scary to have German ancestors.
No, nope. We all have German ancestors on this panel. We're all good.
Sure do. Well,
What about you?
my favorite part was the whole bit about Halley's Comet
Oh yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
how that, affected his ancestor into thinking, that, you know, it's going to end the church and all of that. I just thought that was really fascinating. I can't imagine what it must have been like back then to observe something like that.
So this is where I'm going to ask, did you see Halley's Comet when it came around
I don't think so.
in
I
the
don't think I
80s?
did.
How about you, Terry?
Mm.
Ursula, did you see
I'm not so into comets, so I.
Okay, so this
That's
is going
funny because we normally would, like, we would go out. There was one
so
last winter or this last summer that we went outside and laid on the cement watching for hours.
right. So this will tell you how old I am if people want to do the math. But Halley's Comet, I was either 8 or 9 when it came around. So, mid to late 80s. And I remember we were living in Maryland at the time. And I remember middle of the night, my parents bundling me up because we lived in DC, suburban DC, Montgomery County, and driving to Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, because it was in the middle of nowhere.
So it'd be dark enough.
So it would be dark enough. And we lived in an apartment complex, and our next door neighbors had a telescope.
Oh.
And we went out there, and I slept. And then about 2 a.m. they woke me up. Because the adults are out there with the adult beverages.
Oh, sure.
And, wake me up, put me in. I remember it being freezing cold. And you could see it with your naked eye, but then putting you in front of the telescope and looking at this huge bright spot in this tail. And
Cool.
so as a child in the 80s, it was awe-inspiring, and we know what it is. But I could imagine, people before us not knowing what it is, maybe not even realizing that this is the same thing that's happening every, 76 years? Near 80 years it happens on a regular cycle.
Right.
How frightful it must be,
Yeah.
This is where I need to get on Google and fact check before somebody posts something nasty that I don't know my facts about.
You don't know anything. No, unfortunately, my parents were not into all that
75
kind
to
of stuff.
77.
My husband is very much into it. He lets me know like when there's a chance you're going to see the Northern Lights.
Last night.
Yes, we didn't see anything, but yeah, I keep hoping to see the Northern Lights. I think that would be awesome.
That's on our list too.
Yeah.
I didn't attempt.
So Ursula, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Ursula, I had another question for you about German records, because now I know universities and educational systems have changed over time, but are you familiar with the way educational systems were set up back then? Because it sounded like in the episode he went to a school to learn to be a deacon, but while he was there, he learned math and taught music. Is that what I understand? Is that the way I understand
that's what
it?
I understood as well, and that's not really unusual, because when they attended university in those days, they did receive a very broad education.
Mm-hmm.
So you just didn't go there and attend the faculty of astronomy or mathematics or so. And I think he probably was very into being a clergyman because it was a safe job, mainly.
I could see that.
Why he went for it and why it took that long. I thought 8 years was a very long time, because with my ancestors who also were pastors, they studied much quicker. So they stayed like 2 or 3 years. So he really took his time.
I was going to say, I thought the gentleman that Josh was speaking to said that it normally took 4.
Yeah.
Maybe that was his guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it really depends on also how fast you do it and the student's life. Because one of my ancestors, he wrote something about students not behaving at university. And he
Oh.
complained because it kept him from studying.
So this is what I say, that children never change. And in the 1600s, they weren't doing good in school and misbehaving just like today.
Yeah, it was pretty wild times then.
Wow, that's about all I got. Remember, we were founded by Puritans, right? They had no fun. No,
Yeah. But he was a pietist, so probably life was a bit more strict for him.
yes.
So maybe there was a bit less partying.
Now, for the people who don't understand what that means, can you give us a brief description of that word, just in case there's someone watching the episode who didn't really understand what they meant by that?
It's hard to explain because it is a very philosophical and religious. So, well, what we can say is that by then the church was kind of very, very conservative and very, say, away from the people. So they were busy with themselves and making rules and making money, and so they didn't really look at the people too much. And the pietists were very liberal, very open-minded, very modern at that time. They're not anymore, but then they were, and they had nearly revolutionary ideas. So they really did have a big impact on Germany, even today. So yeah, we can say they were simply more open-minded. But Zimmerman, he was a radical pietist who were much more. I don't think you can say fanatic, but they had these scenarios that the church would go down and everything. But like my ancestors, they were moderate pietists, and they did well. So they didn't constantly lose their jobs and such. Oh, interestingly, there is one when Zimmerman goes to Frankfurt. He goes to another very radical pietist, and who belongs to a group who bought land in Pennsylvania and wanted to immigrate there. And but they didn't, and they gave this land to Quakers, who then moved there and founded Germantown. So the Germantown
Oh,
originally belonged to radical pietists, to which also Zimmerman belonged to.
I've driven through there.
Yeah,
It's
see?
on the way to Philadelphia.
Yeah. Now, does that make you a radical pietist?
There was a Revolutionary War battlefield there also. That would be my child speaking to me from across the room going, that is interesting.
It's very, very interesting if you go back into this pietist story, because they had such a big impact, especially on education. Or, for example, they translated the Bible from High German, which Luther translated. I mean, Luther translated the Bible from Latin into High German, but most of the people did not speak High German. So some of the pietists translated the Bible back to the language that the people spoke. So the different dialects.
Can you guys hear me by any chance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My headset unplugged itself and then won't work again. So
Oh.
we've been having technical issues for everybody's benefit this evening. This is not the first time this has happened.
Oops.
It's okay. It happens. I was going to say, so the letter that he wrote, so this is something I'm curious about. And my husband and I discussed a little bit when it happened on the episode. He went to Frankfurt, and he wrote that letter. I want to know how it ended up in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it was sent to St. Petersburg, but somehow this letter that was written in the 1600s to Frankfurt landed there. What, Terry? I'm sorry.
Well, didn't the Russians take a lot of the records?
I knew they took art, but did they also take records and things?
Oh, yes. Oh yes.
Okay.
I was
So
gonna say,
that's
I probably
probably
had heard that there's definitely like German records and that in Russia.
Yeah. But you also need to understand that they wrote letters. I mean, they wrote letters after letters after letters, and that's why we know so much about the Pietist movement.
Mhm.
Is that they simply wrote letters about everything and to everybody, so to say.
And we're very, very thankful they did.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
interesting.
Do you know, I have to say, one of my favorite things about watching these episodes, especially when they go overseas to places that potentially my ancestors could have been, is I love seeing all the architecture and the towns and how they wander around from facility to facility. Terry and Jen, you guys haven't been to Germany before, right? No.
No,
On my list.
I've not really left the country.
Yeah, I've been to Canada.
I've been to Barbados.
Oh, that makes it up.
That's right. So this
I
is
go
what,
to Germany if you've been to Canada.
this is what I say, Canada and Mexico don't count because they're attached.
Been to North America.
Okay. Well, it's been,
Someday.
I think the last time I was in Germany was 1997, 1998. So it's been a while since I've been to that part of Europe. But it was fun for me because some of the places he went, I remembered visiting with my parents when I would go over there and see them, like Stuttgart. My mother and Frankfurt, we always flew in and out of Frankfurt, and so my mother and my father, my mother was stationed in the southwestern part of Germany, so it was very nice. I periodically think to myself, I'm going to get back over there. We'll take a trip together, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm
And
willing.
Ursula will help us.
In-depth genealogist.
There you go.
Right. And I'm sure you've traveled all around that area that he's been to. Have you done research in that area, Ursula?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have. And I also lived in Stuttgart for some time.
Mm.
It's a very nice area. Very pretty.
Yes.
This,
I'm more the Baden type.
I have family from there too.
Oh, many Americans have. There were many people from Württemberg who immigrated.
Yeah. That's one of my husband, who only has 2 German lines, right there.
Yeah.
Now, so this is what I tell people who've never been over there. To me, that area of Germany looks like West Virginia.
Wow.
It
I've
with
been there.
with the really the really very hills, the valleys, the types of trees. It's very similar. My to that part of West Virginia, Ohio Valley area. Because when my mother would get homesick, she would make my father drive her around the countryside of southwestern Germany because it reminded her of home. I'm from southern Indiana, the Ohio Valley region. And it reminded her of home, and she wouldn't be so homesick. So,
Okay, I just have to ask. This is silly. Didn't they film the Hatfields and McCoys out that way? Because they couldn't do it in West Virginia because it's not like it was.
Really?
they did.
I didn't realize that. I
And-
watched that show. I had no idea it was filmed elsewhere.
I read something on it. Just because my family has connections to the Hatfields, so.
Oh.
Sorry, Ursula, we've got sidetracked again.
Sorry. It related.
Oh, just go on. Yes, continue.
I thought it would be interesting to give people a visual reference for what that area looked like in American terms.
It
Okay.
was good. It was good.
But I know, Ursula, before we started, you said that you thought you might have found a potential acquaintance connection to the Zimmerman story. Did you want to talk about that for a few minutes?
Yes, I have my ancestors. My 8th great grandfather had there, and the 8th great grandfather of Josh Groban. I don't know that if they knew one another, but they had mutual friends. So that I know, and we know that from letters as well. So Zimmerman had a very good friend named Peterson, and my eighth great-grandfather was a witness to his wedding.
Wow.
So it's this kind of connection. And I even have a picture of him.
Oh, pictures are awesome.
Show.
Look, can you see that?
Bring it up a little more.
Fire. Oh, excellent.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
We do look alike, don't we?
Yes, you just need to do your hair that way and
Yeah. Well, it was probably a wig, so that should
true.
be easily done. So he was a pastor himself, and he was a pietist, but a moderate pietist. So he always had a job, and he ended up as the general superintendent of Pomerania.
Wow.
What? That's where my people are supposed to be from.
Yeah, a lot of Pomeranians left. So, actually, I had a case where one of my ancestors had baptized the child. Yes.
Oh, wow.
So you had
Yeah.
that connection to a case you were working on.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's neat.
Yeah. So it's well, if you come from a line of pastors, and they were one of the first pastors, one of the first Lutheran pastors. So I really had to go back a long way.
Wow.
And so they were baptized Catholic and then became a Protestant pastor.
Wow.
So that's, I mean, you really have to dig deep. You really have to do a lot of reading in order to understand that time and to really go back. And the handwriting is very hard to read. But thankfully, if you have a pastor, there's a lot of documentation. So even if there aren't church books, usually the life of a pastor was well documented.
So we should pray to find a pastor.
Exactly. That's life. Yes.
And it's not just because they wrote a lot of letters, but it would be because of the schooling and the, the church records. That's why there's a large.
I mean, the more you did, so to say, with your life, the more traces you left. You know, if you were an illiterate farm helper and you lived in a small town, the church record probably was the only thing that could document that you were there. Maybe sometimes they are estate records that document that you received money or owed some services or something like that. But usually it's very hard to find secondary sources. But if you're a pastor, you went to university. And then we have pastor books, and then the church has records because you wrote some letters to the church administration about the school or something like that. So you simply have, or you complain because they weren't paid with money, they were paid with land and wood and such. And if you don't receive enough wood, then you could write a letter of complaint and such. So the more you move, so to say, the more action there is, the more chances you have of finding something.
Wow. See, my ancestors were all the illiterate farmer types, so I
was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it was from my father's side, it was the same, and they came from Silesia, so there's nothing left either. So there's not even church records. So I don't have anything there. Nothing.
That's too bad.
Yeah. So, but that's the way it is. You survive.
That's right. You find other things.
Yeah, you focus on pastors from Pomerania, you know.
Because Pomerania has excellent records.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is that they don't have church records either, but they have so many other sources. So that's why I know so much about them, because they wrote letters.
I'm liking this German letter writing thing.
Yeah.
It's got to be really interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, that was their only way of communicating. Because I mean, think about traveling. I mean, how long that took and how complicated that was. So a lot of them, and it also it wasn't such a small group, so they simply kept in touch. And if you're on the Pomeranian countryside, you just need to have some kind of intellectual conversation, so to say. So you write letters. It's,
That's right. She can't just go out to the internet and look at cat pictures all day.
yeah, yeah. They probably would have done Google Hangouts.
There we go. I could see that.
Yes.
I keep thinking when you're talking about all these, people writing letters, and it made me think about how, my grandparents and my great grandparents' generation, they were proliferant letter writers. They wrote letters all the time. And I know the other day I heard somebody or read something somewhere about how, oh, it's a lost pastime and people should write letters. And I keep thinking to myself, I've got thousands of emails on my hard drive.
Yep.
Those are the letters of the future, They're stuck on servers, they're out in the cloud, and future generations are going to find our emails just as informative and
Yeah.
socially
Scary.
interesting.
But when we lived in America, that was 1970, and it was very expensive to make phone calls home.
Mm.
So my mother, who had many siblings, wrote something. So she wrote letters, and it was passed from one to her parents, and then it was passed from one sibling to the other.
Oh, wow.
A year she wrote a report, 50, 60 pages with pictures, with trips we
Wow.
took and everything. So we still have them.
Oh,
That's
So think about if she would have
wonderful.
phoned or
That's
just sent an
great.
email or something. It's not the same as to really have a little book. So
Mhm.
I know, so where I traveled in America, so I have books, and I can remember, I can read that and remember exactly where we went when we went through Ohio and
Wow.
we went to Chicago and everything. So I have pictures
That's
and
amazing.
some kind of documentation.
Oh, I'm
So
so
that's
jealous.
Mom was smart.
yeah. So thanks to very expensive phone calls.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Phone calls weren't any cheaper in the 90s, and I used to call my parents collect on occasion because I was a poor college student when they were living in Germany. And my dad would say, "You got 10 minutes. Make it good."
Make it worth your while, right?
That's right. It was usually me begging for money.
It's so hard. It's so hard to really imagine. I mean, if also for my ancestors, when they wrote letters from America or to America, it took about between 8 and 10 weeks,
Wow.
one letter. And I
Wow.
mean, just imagine you write a letter, then you wait 10 weeks, then the other one receives it, has to sit down, send it again. So it's at least about 3 months that pass until you get an answer.
Wow.
Patience. Lots of patience.
And you have to be literate.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
That
a lot of people emigrated and they simply couldn't send a letter home.
Mhm.
Gosh. Yeah.
See, right
Let me
there.
ask you this, Ursula. So these letters that you find, are you finding them, like, how are you finding letters from back in the day? Are they like in collections within archives?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Mine are. Yeah. Because there is a center for Pietism
Mhm.
at a university that the Pietists founded, and at a
Okay.
very famous school in Halle. And so they have a huge collection. I've been to the library here in Berlin, and it's like 2 bookshelves, only letters from one person,
Wow.
and he was somehow related to
Wow.
through their wives or something like that. So they were
Hmm.
kind of related. So they also, my ancestors, they exchanged letters, and there are also greetings to my family members when he lives in Dresden then and writes letters to Frankfurt. Then he says, please say hello too. So he also mentions Zimmermann there as
Ah.
well. When Zimmermann finds a job in Heidelberg, so he mentions them and says how happy he is that he found a job.
Huh.
So, and these are all, I mean, these are books. They're not just copies of the letters. They're really commented and everything. It's incredible. I mean,
Wow.
yeah. Well, but you simply don't have the time. And then they're so specific, and they have so much religious terms in it. And now with our knowledge of religion, we don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you really have to go back into theology, theology, theology,
Theological.
theology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you have to know the German history and really go back and the many philosophical ideas they had then, and they're so hard to understand for us. So this is really something you do when you're retired.
What's that?
Well, we have just a few minutes left until our time is up. Do either of you have any other questions or any other comments or anything you think the audience needs to know? Anyone want to go first?
Well, for
Thank you
those
for
of
the
you
trip.
who don't know how it ended, you know, how he died, that they did find his grave in Rotterdam.
Oh.
And they didn't really say anything about that, but you can read that on the web, because the researcher who did the Dutch part wrote about it.
Mm.
So you can read about it on dutchgenealogy.nl.
Was
Okay.
that Yvette who did that?
About how she found his grave.
Awesome.
I saw that blog post came about, and I have not actually, bad me, had enough time to sit down and read it.
Me
I will
either.
go do that right now.
It's worth reading it. And
Yeah.
it shows the difficulty also, because he was buried under a different name. So they
Oh.
made the German name into a Dutch name,
Oh,
Interesting.
and she found it.
good
So,
for
and then
her.
she searched after his grave. So that it's very interesting to read, especially after seeing
Yeah.
seeing it on TV, because
Mhm.
you do wonder what happened then. I mean, you know he dies, obviously,
Right.
but mm,
Hmm.
And
I'll
once
have to-
again, it's only an hour-long show, so everything they tape can't be put in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to go look out for that blog post from Yvette.
Mhm.
Yeah.
mm.
Do either of you have a last thought, Terry?
I have a thought outside of this that I just saw on Facebook that Lou Zooks is retiring from Ancestry at the end of the month.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So I just thought I would share that.
Well, that's good. Good for her.
Yeah, good for her.
I know she's been there a really
Yes,
long
I was going to say,
time.
she's
So.
been there forever, hasn't she?
I was talking with Leland.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about, you know, how Ancestry really started to take off and everything, and apparently he's very good friends with Lou,
Mm-hmm.
and so he just had glowing things to say about her, and you know, I've met her once, and she's just the sweetest lady.
She truly, truly is. I was interviewed for a newspaper article about a year and a half, 2 years ago on genealogy and DNA, and she actually reached out to me via email after she read it. And I was like, oh, that was so nice. But yeah, so that's sad.
Yeah.
Good for her. Good for her.
Her though.
Well, ladies, if we don't have anything else to say,
No.
we've been on a little over 30 minutes, and I know that Ursula would love to go to bed because she's 6 hours ahead of the rest of us.
It's
5
5.
hours.
It's
5
5
hours.
We're not on saving time
Oh,
yet.
Oh,
that's still bad, though.
still too late.
So it's 10 minutes to midnight. So
Oh
Right.
goodness.
So in the nice people that we are, we want to make sure she can go to bed.
thank you.
You're welcome. So remember that we would love to hear from you out there in YouTube land. Drop us a note, send us an email to editor@theinDepthGenealogist.com. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter. I can speak tonight. Like us on Facebook. Come out, tell us how you think about the show. Let us know if you'd like us to talk about anything in particular. And as always, don't forget to go in depth with all of your ancestors. Have a great day and good night.